Hi, it's Gary. Welcome to today's video. Today I've got a brown ink showdown for you. We're going to be taking a look at Oster Caffe Crema and also Diamine Tobacco Sunburst. Both of these are quickly becoming my favourite brown ink. So join me now down on the mat. We'll take a look at the inks. We'll do some writing with them. Then I'll give you my thoughts on both of these glorious brown inks. So here we are down on the mat. Let's fetch in the two inks. The first one, Oster. This is a Caffe Crema. Nice 50ml bottle, nice size bottle. And that's going to be going up against Diamine Tobacco Sunburst. And this is a 30ml bottle. They're both really nice brown inks. I'm not sure if you can see the little tiny swatches. Very difficult to see. To make it easier, I did my own. So here's the Caffe Crema. And here we have the Tobacco Sunburst. Looking at the swatches, I know they can be a little bit misleading, can't they, at times, but they give you a good approximation. The Caffe Crema seems to be a paler brown and it's got hints of orange in it, whereas the Tobacco Sunburst, a bit more of a darker brown, but where we've got the thinner parts, it looks a bit more on the yellow side. We'll see if that comes out in the writing though. Let's take a quick look at chromatography. So these were done. I draw a little line along the bottom. I then suspend just the bottom part to just below the line in water for about 15 seconds. And then I let it dry. Quite different chromatographies, aren't they? The Caffe Crema, you can see a lot more of peach and of orange coming through. There's a teeniest little bit of a grey line at the bottom, but not much. And then, as I say, we've got peach. We're going into some more orangey colours. Then, I've got to be honest, it looks here like it's a grey line. But when I look up closer, we've got a very thin green, very thin blue. So it's very little amounts of different colours. Looking on the Tobacco Sunburst, though, very different chromatography. And this is one of the things, I'm still playing around learning all about chromatography. But I find this quite interesting. We've got this definite grey bit at the bottom. And then that leads into some yellows. A tiny band of peach, nowhere near as wide as what we saw on that Caffe Crema. Then we've got some little bits of orange. We've got a lot of yellow coming through in this. I don't see any yellow coming through on the Caffe Crema. And then at the top, I've got definite colours that I can see. So I can see purples, I can see reds, I can see a bit of blue in there as well. Quite interesting. As I say, I'm still playing around with this. I'm still trying to learn how to really best interpret it. Let's pop this to one side. Going to fetch in my notebook of testing, because really that's what we want to see is how do they write. So this is an Oxford Optic paper. It's in a black and red A5 notebook. The pen I'm going to use today is this Serenity Dip pen. I'm trying to standardise my ink tests to use this pen so that they're all using the same. Makes it a little bit easier to compare them. It's got a nice broad nib on this. So the first ink we're going to use is the Oster. I've given it a little bit of a shake. Not that it needs it, but again, let's keep some consistency. Let's dip that pen in. We have here Oster Caffe Crema. And it's a Serendipity pen. Just re-dip the pen. That's a little better, isn't it? Serendipity dip pen. I'm going to dip it again. Let's do drying times. Immediate. Looks quite wet. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. 1 minute. After a minute, still got quite a lot of ink on there. Now we've got to bear in mind I'm dipping this pen into the ink, so take that in mind when you're looking at that. Let's do a sentence. So definitely, as we're going through with that writing, you can see that the ink is being used up. So looking at the writing here, on the top line, you can see where it was still quite wet, but then it seemed to dry off really quickly. I re-dipped it, and then before I did my hash mats, I re-dipped it again. Looks quite wet. I don't see that in reality. We will take a look at writing on some Tomoe River paper shortly. With my sentence, I had re-dipped the pen, but then I scribbled off on a bit of scrap paper just to take off the worst of that wetness before I started doing the writing. And here you can see, we start darker, and again we're losing that colour, but we can see that what we've got is a lot of orange tones coming through, especially when we get down to Wizards, Meg, Toxic. Then the second line, as that ink is starting to run out, we can see there's a lot of that pale, that nice orangey background. Just going to move the paper up slightly. What we'll do now is we'll take a look at the Diamine Tobacco Sunburst. So cleaned off the pen, so we're starting nice and clean. So here we have Diamine Tobacco Sunburst. This, again, is a Serenity Dip pen. Drying times. There's immediate. 10 seconds. 30 seconds. 1 minute. After a minute, we've still got a little bit of wetness coming off there. Let's write our sentence. Big difference between the two. One of the things I noticed here with this Diamine, it didn't run out as quick. You can see that in the writing. I was actually able to do the hashes with the same fill as I wrote the words. I did re-dip for the sentence, and I did the same as I did with the Caffe Crema, is I scribbled off a bit on some scrap paper just to try and make this as like for like as I could possibly get. If you look at the writing here, to me, it's nice. I love seeing these yellows coming through. Not so much on the grumpy, maybe a bit on the G, but as we go on, as the ink starts to come off the nib, we're seeing a lot more, I don't want to call it a golden tone, but certainly more yellow coming through. To my eye, this ink, it looks like there's a little bit of green in it, and I think that's where they get the idea of tobacco, as in the tobacco leaves as they've dried. They've got that greeny look to them anyway. If I fetch down the other one, so hopefully I can get both the writing on the same page. There we go. If we look at this, you can see the orange coming through here in the Caffe Crema. It's a darker ink by the look of it. It's more of a brown tone. As I said, with the Tobacco Sunburst, to me, there's that bit of green coming through. And then we've got these yellow undertones. I've always said I liked the Caffe Crema, but now I've started using Tobacco Sunburst more. I'm actually leaning towards that being the favourite of the two inks. It's touch and go. I enjoy them both. I like them both. I like writing with them both. I think they're nice colours. I think maybe it's the green tones. Green, my favourite colour. I think that fetches a little bit more interest into this ink, whereas the Caffe Crema, it's just that brown and the orange in there. I'm just going to fetch in my Tomoe River notebook. The testing that I've done in there, that was used in this. This is a Pilot Custom 823. Currently, it's got the Tobacco Sunburst in there. So we fetch in the notebook. This is 52 GSM Tomoe River paper. It's in a Galen leather notebook, just a plain one that I got from Galen Leather, quite a while ago now. So we start here. This is the Caffe Crema. You know, part of this, I'm talking about the pen. I love the pen. I love the bouncy nib. It's nice and soft. It's a nice little bit of feedback. It's enjoyable to write with. But let's just try and concentrate on the actual ink itself. You know, we can see here loads of that orange shading coming through. Virtually every word, if not every letter, has got a little bit of that. And for me, that's what makes the character within the ink, is seeing all this shading coming through. Just move down to the bottom. You know, here I do my wetness checks. Still showing it has been fairly wet. This time though, coming out of a pen, not out of that dip. So nice and interesting. Let's take a look and compare that against the Tobacco Sunburst. Here's the Tobacco Sunburst. Again, I'm calling out the shading. I'm calling out the yellow, the paler brown tones that I'm seeing in there. To my eye, it comes out very clear here, where it's got that green shades to it. I can really see that. When I look at my swipes at the bottom, again, they are wet, but I don't think they're as wet as we were seeing with the other one. Let me try and fold this over. So on here, you can see on the left-hand side, Caffe Crema, and the right, we've got Tobacco Sunburst. On here, my eye's still drawn to the Tobacco Sunburst. I think I'm seeing a little bit more shading on the Caffe Crema, but it's that orange shade where it's where we see shading on the Tobacco Sunburst. As we've already discussed, it's got more of that yellow. And where I'm doing my swipe for my wetness, not much in it, but I do think there's slightly less coming from the Tobacco Sunburst. So let me pop this out of the way. Just fetch in the two bottles, make sure I've put the lids back on properly. So we've got the Robert Oster. Hopefully it won't run away. There we go. And we've got the Diamine Tobacco Sunburst. I enjoy both these inks. What I've been tending to do with my Pilot Custom 823 is alternate between them. So one fill would be Caffe Crema. The next one would be Tobacco Sunburst. I like writing with them. I enjoy both the colours. If I had to really pick between the two, I would really struggle. But I think the Tobacco Sunburst today, this is the one that I would tend towards. This is the one, I think maybe with them green tones. But tomorrow, it could be Caffe Crema. I do flip-flop between the two quite a lot. I enjoyed the way it writes in the Galen leather. I'll just fetch that in again on just one page. It's a broad nib in that Pilot Custom 823. And I think it really lets the ink show off its character. You know, that's a combination of pen, ink and paper. Really looks nice. I think the biggest difference between the two is when you look at the bottles. There they are side by side. With the Robert Oster, that's a 50ml bottle. With the Diamine, that's a 30ml bottle. I believe you can get an 80ml bottle of the Diamine ink, but I tend to stick with the 30s. I haven't worked it out exactly, but the Diamine is a lot cheaper. The Robert Oster, it's about 20 Aussie dollars for a bottle. The Diamine, it was about $8 or $9 for a bottle. So two bottles, which is 60 millilitres, would be, let's say, $18, so ever so slightly cheaper, but we're only talking a couple of dollars. And you're having multiple bottles laying around. So these are my thoughts on these two inks. I really enjoy them. I really like writing with them. As I said in the intro, if 2.5 years ago you said to me, Gary, you're going to find it hard to pick between two brown inks that are your favourite colours, I'd have thought you were being daft. I'd have thought you'd have lying to me. But as I've used it, as I've got more experience with these inks, I'm finding that I really enjoy using them. They're inks that I reach for. And to be honest, they're inks I'd quite happily take into a professional setting because it's just a little bit unusual. Fetches out a bit of character, doesn't it? But they're not something which is way out there and would make you look daft in front of other professionals. So all in all, two nice inks. Highly recommend both of them. Highly recommend, if you can, give them both a try. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. What are your favourite brown inks? Do you use brown inks? I found When I started using fountain pens, if you'd have said to me, Gary, you're going to love brown ink, I'd have said, you're daft. I'm absolutely surprised at how quickly and how much I enjoy using these inks. Please drop your comments down below. Please hit the thumbs up button every time you like, every time you comment, just helps with the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get new videos as I release them. I'll talk to you again soon.